Hello, I'm Kate. I'm a 35-year-old woman who just freed herself from her toxic husband. Yes, it was so bad that divorcing him was like attaining freedom. But let me introduce you to my ex-husband, Chris. Chris and I met on a blind date set up by a mutual friend. I will admit that Chris is a very attractive-looking man who has a very charming personality. Right off the bat, he ticked all the boxes that describe the ideal man for me. We shared a lot of interest, and conversation between us flowed effortlessly. We spent a good 6 months just going out on dates without ever making it official. We would take turns planning out the dates, and we always managed to do something fun and exciting. After we made our relationship official, we continued to do that, and after a year of dating, we moved in. It was around that time that I became aware of Chris's financial situation. He didn't make a lot of money, and even though I gave him advice on how to grow his career, he never seemed to take it. But I didn't think it was that bad, considering he made a decent amount to support himself, and I was ready to carry over the rest of the costs. Anyway, after about 4 years of dating, we made a decision to get married, and a year later we decided to purchase a house. We used my name on the mortgage and deed because I had a much better credit score than Chris, and it was the best option back then. In hindsight, I am so grateful that Chris was on board with that decision. It was about 2 years into us being married that I noticed changes in Chris's behavior. He began to get a lot more demanding and stopped helping out around the house as much. Before, we equally split our chores, but then all that stopped because he always claimed to be too busy at work. I still let it all slide because I understood how tiring work could get. I picked up everything around the house, but at some point, it was tiring for me too. I talked to Chris about it, and he would promise to help around, but a week later we were back to square one. It was frustrating, but I let it go because I loved Chris and I wanted to be able to provide for him in every way that I could. Things remained that way for about another 3 to 4 years. Of course, our relationship did take a downfall when it came to going out or doing things for fun because I never really had the time or energy to. Even so, it was still surprising to find out that Chris was cheating on me. I first discovered my husband was having an affair when he had left his phone unlocked while he was in the shower. I didn't mean to snoop, but as I was going to put his phone to charge, I saw a notification on his phone that piqued my interest. The notification was a message from someone named Leah. She was asking Chris how long till he left his pathetic wife to go and meet her in the nearby motel. I was shocked and devastated. Never in a million years would I have thought that Chris was cheating on me. There was nothing in our marriage that indicated that he was cheating. Every night when he got back home from work, he greeted me with warmth and love. Our relationship had been going great and we rarely ever fought. So why had he been cheating on me? I wanted to cry and throw up all at the same time. I felt my world crumble and fall apart. At that moment, though, I decided that I had to put on a brave face, so I left Chris's phone that way and let the chat be open so when he came out of the shower and checked his phone, he would know that I knew about his affair. When Chris did come out, he saw the unlocked phone and the chats and immediately figured out that I knew. He tried to avoid talking about it, but I was not going to let that happen. You know I know about your affair. Let's talk about it. I don't think we should. Who is it? I'm sure you saw enough to know what her name is. When did it start? A year ago? Can we seriously not do this? Why did you start seeing her? Babe, please, let's not do this. Don't call me babe. Tell me. I don't know why I'm doing it, okay? I guess I just missed the thrill of dating someone who's on the same wavelength as me. So, I'm not on the same wavelength as you? Well, I wouldn't say that exactly. You've just become boring. Excuse me? I mean, you never want to go out, nor do you ever make any fun plans when we do go out. You're always tired, and we practically have no life in the bedroom either. You do realize that I'm always tired because I'm doing all the chores around the house and working. You've never once offered to help me out. Listen, that's just your duty as my wife. I told you to stay at home, but you refused to. That still shouldn't mean that you don't contribute to the house. I'm the man of the house. I get to do whatever I want. You get to do whatever you want, so you cheat on me? If that's what it takes to have some fun, then I will. I was hoping that we could talk about this and maybe start repairing our relationship, but clearly that is not going to happen. I don't think anything will change you being boring. I'm happy to stay married, but I will continue to see Leah. I need to be away from you for a while. I'm going to sleep in the other room. I couldn't bear to be in the same room as Chris the longer he spoke. It was clear that he was unapologetic. Aside from the fact that he didn't even want to talk about it, he made it abundantly clear to me that he did not view me as anything but a wife, whom he expected to do everything for him. Chris had never been one to have archaic views on gender roles, but there he was. I had a sneaking suspicion that it had to do with all these podcasts that he was listening to that involved a bunch of these men talking about how women have become too vocal and need to be put back in their place. It was sad to see Chris turn into one of those men, but it was equally heartbreaking to see him not even realize what he was turning into. I heard the main door open and shut shortly after. I went to the guest bedroom and I knew that Chris had left to meet his mistress. It was then that I finally broke down crying. I knew I couldn't spend the night all by myself. I was alone and hurting, and I needed someone to hold me. I called over my best friend, Cass. Cass heard me crying over the phone and came over in a heartbeat. She brought with her tubs of ice cream, and she held me while I cried for a long while. She didn't ask me what was wrong, but she just silently held me. Once I managed to calm myself down enough, I told her about what I had found out. Chris is cheating on me. What? Are you sure? Definitely. How do you know? His phone was unlocked, and I happened to see him get a message from a woman who asked him when he was leaving his pathetic wife to go and meet her. What the hell? Did you talk to him about it? Oh yeah, I did. He didn't want to talk about it, but I forced him to. Turns out he's been cheating on me for a year because I became too boring. Boring? What does he even mean by that? He thinks I'm too tired all the time and that I don't do anything fun with him because of that. Don't you do everything around here? Yeah, I do. Which he didn't think was a big deal because that was supposed to be my duty as a wife. Wow. All right then. His duty as the husband should have been to go serve his country, but here he is, cheating on his wife. Cass. I'm just saying that his argument is stupid. Did he even try to apologize? Not for a second. He just blamed it on me and went to spend the night with Leah. Good, because I swear if I saw him, I would have wrung his throat. But do you know what you want to do now? Not really. Chris said he didn't mind being married, but I definitely don't want that. Great. I'll help you with everything after that. Why don't you come stay with me until everything settles down? That would be amazing. Thanks a lot, Cass. I'll always have your back, Kate. We spent the rest of the night just relaxing and watching a bunch of our favorite movies. I didn't forget about what had happened, but I did manage to distract myself long enough. The next morning, Cass helped me pack a bunch of my things up to take over to her place. While at her place, I decided to make the horrible decision to look Leah up. I had access to Chris's social media on my phone, so I decided to do a little snooping in on who she was. I hadn't ever felt the urge to go through his social media because he never gave me a reason to do it. I found out that he had muted all notification from Leah's chat, which would explain why I never caught any wind of the affair until then. Anyways, it turned out that Leah was a co-worker with his company. Or, to be more precise, she worked under him. She was 25 years old, which made her a good 10 years younger than me and 12 years younger than Chris. That was enough to gross me out even more. If anything, that solidified my decision to get a divorce from him. But I needed to get my things in order before I filed for a divorce. Cass and I discussed how we could get back at Chris because we were not going to let him off the hook so easily. The first thing I did was to take out all of the money that I had put into our joint account and put it into my personal account, which Chris had no access to. The next thing was to file for divorce. It took a couple of days to get things in order, and in those days, I heard nothing from Chris. It hurt a lot to think that Chris didn't even care to check on my well-being, but then again, what could I have expected from a man who saw no worth in me? I eventually needed to go back home to get some more of my things. When I got there, I saw Chris sitting on the couch. He saw me and walked over to me. "Where have you been?" "Why do I need to tell you about my whereabouts?" "Do you even know how worried I had been?" "And yet, I didn't receive a single phone call from you." Don't try to play nice right now. Do you really have to be such a jerk right now? I'm sorry, but I only recently found out that my husband was cheating on me because he thought I was too boring for him. And he seemed very unapologetic about it. Excuse me for being rude. The sarcasm just never ends with you, huh? I was just concerned about you, especially since you withdrew such a large amount from our joint account. Yeah. I took it because I put all that into the account. Why should I let you spend my money? Who do you think you are to do that? You will put that money back or what, Chris? You cheat on me with another woman? I don't care. No, I'll kick you out. I'll move in with Leah and I'll have my sister move in here. That's the most absurd thing I've ever heard. Well, try me if you want. Put that money back in 2 hours or everything I said will happen by tomorrow. I didn't say another word to him after that. I just went to our room, packed up the rest of my clothes and other things, and made my way back to Cass's place. Once there, I told her all about my encounter with Chris. She was rightfully angry with me, and she told me that we needed to contact a lawyer. Cass had a friend who was a lawyer, and we asked him for advice. He asked whose name the house was under, and I said mine. Both the mortgage and the house title had only my name on it. I was the only one who paid the mortgage. It happened to be that way because I worked in a very niche field that paid a lot of good money. I easily made 3 times more than Chris, and we figured that was the best way to go about getting a house. Since that was the case, the house was mine. Everything that the house required was bought by me. The lawyer said that if we divorced, the house would be under my name anyway, so it wouldn't matter. And if Chris's sister moved in, all I had to do was submit an eviction notice to her, considering she did not have my consent to live there. I felt a breath of relief upon hearing that nothing could harm me in any way. True to his word, Chris called me the next morning to tell me that his sister had moved in because I hadn't deposited the money back into our account. I didn't say much to him, which angered him, and he hung up the phone. Upon the lawyer's advice, I also made sure to record every conversation I had with Chris, as anything could be used as evidence if needed. All that was left to do was follow my plans of action. I say plans because there were 2 ways of how things could have played out. Either I hand Chris's sister, Candy, the eviction notice and she does or she does not move out, and I sue her. Either way, I was winning. I knew that the latter would end up happening, though, because Candy and I didn't gel well together. Candy always harbored this hatred for me. She always tried to one-up me in everything, to the point where if she knew I was going to do or wear something, she would do or wear the same thing but more extravagantly, so she would have all eyes on her. She even tried to sabotage Chris and I's wedding that day. We had gotten into a large number of fights over the years, which resulted in me going low contact with her. I only ever interacted with her because Chris begged me to. He was very overprotective of her and always spoiled her senselessly. Of course, when she found out about all the things I had achieved, she was furious and upset that she wouldn't be able to upstage me in that area. So she took to trying to steal things from me whenever she did come over. Many times I would find a bunch of my expensive clothes, shoes, and even skincare products missing right after she came over. Chris would beg me to not say anything because Candy did live rather frugally, and he thought that her taking some things was just her way of having at least some lavish things. I didn't agree with that thought process, but I let it go. That only made things worse, so I banned her from coming over. That didn't make either Chris or Candy happy, but Chris couldn't stop me because I had told him just how much she had actually stolen from me. And he knew that Candy had done way more damage than what was repairable. So when she moved into my house, she called me to gloat about it. "Hello, Kate. What do you want? Remember how you banned me from coming over?" "Yes, because you stole thousands of dollars worth of things from me specifically." "Who cares about that? Guess where I am right now?" "Chris told me you moved in." "That's right. I have this huge and glorious house all to myself, something you don't have." "I think I still do have the house. I have already sent an eviction notice your way, and I'm giving you 3 days to move out." "Ha! An eviction notice? From you? Like I'll follow through on it. This is my brother's house. He told me I can stay here, so I will." "It's really not his house." Yeah. Marital property or whatnot, but he has all the power, and he decided this was the best thing to do." "That doesn't mean—" "Gosh, you really can't stop talking, can you? I see why my brother chose another woman. Ugh." "Well, okay. I have nothing more to say. Goodbye." I hung up the phone, but not before hearing Candy cackle on the other end. Well, if she didn't get out of there in 3 days, I was going to take her to court, and I was all lawyered up. Candy must have told Chris about our call because an hour after I had hung up the call on Candy, he yelled at me for having the audacity to send her an eviction notice, but much like the previous time we were on call, I said nothing. Within the next 3 days, 2 things happened. The first was that I had the divorce papers delivered to Chris, and he decided that he wanted to contest it. The second was that Candy still hadn't moved, so I had a court summons sent to her. Legally speaking, she was a squatter, and she was shocked to find out that the house was in my name and not her precious brother's. I was there when she got the summons, and she yelled at me for tricking her. I told her that I did no such thing. I had given her ample time, and I had warned her to move out, but she refused to listen. She had to face the consequences of her actions. In court, my lawyer presented all the evidence, the eviction notice, and recordings of phone calls that showed me telling Candy to move out, and her refusing to do so. In my state, squatting is taken rather seriously, so Candy was charged with a Class A misdemeanor and was given a fine of $500 to pay. The look of utter defeat and humiliation on her face was very satisfying to see. After years of holding back, to see it all culminate to this made the wait worth it. Chris and Candy approached me after things had settled down with Candy. They came over to Cass's house to hound me for doing what I did. "How could you do that to my little sister?" "Your little sister has been terrorizing my life for the past few years, and I shut that down in the best way possible. A decision you agreed with. Yet the second I grew a spine and told you no, you went right back and pulled her into this. That's your fault." "I only did that because she had nowhere else to go. She got evicted and I was doing her a favor." "So the house suddenly became an option because we were going to separate? If we weren't, would you have snuck her in?" Well, save it, Chris. I don't want to hear anything more from you. I'll just see you in court." "How is the house even in your name?" Your brother's name isn't on any of the documents, and I have been the one paying off the mortgage along with other repairs meticulously for the past 5 years. No matter how much your brother contests it in court, he won't get any ownership of the house. All he'll get is a much lighter wallet. You set him up. I just know you did. I didn't do anything. Your brother firmly believes in being the man of the house, so he should have taken up all the roles that I did, but he would much rather me do all the hard work while he reaped the benefits. Thank God that this is no longer going to be a problem for me. Goodbye, you two. I slammed the door in their face, and that was that. Over the next few weeks, Chris decided that since he wasn't going to get the house, he was going to fight over every single possession that we had, down to our dessert spoons. But I had no worries about it. Whatever furniture he wanted and claimed was his, I had all the receipts of who paid for what. He truly was going to only get what he contributed to, which was not much. While he was busy lobbying for all our things, I decided to send the screenshots of his inappropriate relationship with Leah to Chris's HR. Within a week, he was let go, and surprisingly, Leah wasn't. I found out through some of Chris's colleagues whom I was friends with that she had claimed that he had forced her into the relationship. Otherwise, he would not have given her projects. Needless to say, that relationship did not last after that. It took a couple of months, but the divorce was finalized and I was officially a free woman. I decided to throw myself into work, but not before celebrating for a long while with Cass for being able to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. The last I heard, Chris and Candy were living together in some rundown apartment while still searching for jobs. Their parents send them both a small budget to live on, but aren't happy with what they did. I know about that because my in-laws called me to apologize for their behavior. Since I'm now free, I am looking forward to what more life has to offer me. There was one thing I learned through all of this. It's to never ever forget my worth, and also that I am a horrible person to mess with. Cheers! Hello, my name's Billy and I'm 28 years old. I only got married to my husband Carl 2 years ago, but his mother Helena and I have had a pretty rocky relationship, to say the least. Thankfully, a chance encounter with a childhood friend saved my life from my mother-in-law's evil scheme. Let me introduce you to my relationship with my husband Carl. Carl and I met at a bar. It was a classic right time, right place situation. We hit it off pretty well that night and exchanged socials where we began to talk almost endlessly. I remember we used to even stay up until 5 a.m. just texting each other. Our relationship remained unlabeled for a while because neither of us was looking for any commitment, but eventually we found ourselves getting more and more attached to the other, so we decided to just make our relationship official. We dated for around 2 years before tying the knot. While my relationship with Carl was amazing and pretty smooth sailing, there was one hiccup: his mother, Helena. Helena was a force to be reckoned with. Whatever she wanted, she got, even if she had to get it by hook or crook. While that was an admirable quality, it was not when you put it in the context of her trying to get rid of me. Helena never approved of me from day one, and after Carl told her how we met, she disliked me even more. I don't know why, but she had it in her mind that I was an attention seeker who was after Carl's money, even though I made 2 times more than Carl did. Anyways, she was never subtle about her dislike for me. She was always rude and insulting, although she did make sure to always do it behind my back. She would purposely try to hurt me in little ways, like sticking her leg out to trip me, or she'd purposely spill either ice cold or really hot drinks on me accidentally. At first, I did think all of those things were accidents, but after a while, having a drink poured on you at every meeting tends to feel like more of a coincidence, so I approached Carl about it. "I don't think your mother likes me." "What do you mean? My mom loves you." Well, she's tripped me one too many times. Nonsense, even you have to admit that you're a little clumsy most times. Sure, but she's also poured a lot of drinks on me, all of which have been extremely cold or extremely hot. Ever. Every single time I've met her. I don't know about that, but I can tell you that my mom is very overprotective of me. And maybe you're just amplifying things because you're upset and she hasn't fully approved of you in the way that you wanted. I don't know. It's very odd to say the least. But if she really doesn't like me, would you stand up for me? Of course. But I'm telling you, she just needs some time. Just bear with her shenanigans for a little longer and she'll come around. All right, if you say so. I couldn't bring myself to believe what Carl said immediately, but I believed that he knew his mother better than I did. So I gave it my best shot. I made sure to always do my best and behave my best whenever I was around her. I made sure to take over something whenever I went over, and I never spoke unless I was spoken to. Of course, I felt like a woman from the 18th century, but I was willing to do anything to get Helena to approve of me. One day, Helena called me out of the blue. That was very odd because every time she needed to communicate, she would call Carl and never me. I quite literally jumped when I saw her call. My heart raced as I picked up the phone. Hey Helena, everything all right? Oh yeah, of course. I was just calling you to see if you're free this weekend. Yeah, why? Great. I was thinking maybe we could go out together. You want us? As in you and me to go out together? Yes, I know. I've been giving you a hard time, but I want to make up for it. Oh, of course. Where will we be going? And at what time? I was thinking we could grab lunch at 1 in the afternoon at Savant. That's my favorite restaurant of all time. Sounds fancy. Oh, it is. So you better dress well. I will. I'll see you there then. I couldn't believe that Helena had wanted to go out with me. I mean, yes, it was weird, but all I could think about was how my hard work was paying off. Regardless of her being mean to me, she really did need time to come around and warm up to me. I was ecstatic and even bragged about it to Carl. He was happy that the two most important women in his life were finally getting along and that he no longer had to stand in the middle of both of us. The weekend couldn't have arrived faster. I waited all week for it. I even planned my outfit the day Helena called me. I made sure to look my very best while still maintaining some casualty because I didn't want to seem like a try-hard. I had worn a beautiful pantsuit that Carl assured me Helena would approve of. When I arrived there, Helena gave me a once-over and scoffed. I didn't know if she approved or disapproved, but I figured anything was better than her yelling at me for not dressing appropriately enough. Once inside the restaurant, we were quickly seated inside and we were assigned a waitress. The waitress that served us looked oddly familiar. As she walked to our table, I couldn't help but feel like I knew her, but I couldn't quite place my finger on how. Then I saw her name tag and it read Daisy. That's when it clicked in my brain. Daisy was my best friend growing up. We were neighbors when we were growing up. Our families were close because of us. There was nothing that I did that she didn't and vice versa. We were both only children, so we were like sisters to each other. It became common for people around us to assume where one was, the other was going to be there too. But when we were in 7th grade, her dad had gotten a better job opportunity in the neighboring state and they had to leave. I still remember just how much the both of us cried when we found out. The entire month before she left, we had sleepover after sleepover at my place. She practically lived at my place while her parents packed to leave. And in those days, accessing a telephone was not that easy, although we did keep in touch in whatever way we could. Eventually, though, our lives got different. I made new friends, and so did she. What little contact we had dwindled down to nothing, and that was it. I used to reminisce about us from time to time, but as the years passed, I sort of forgot about her. But then, there she was, working as a waitress in a high-end restaurant. When she approached our table, it seemed like she recognized me too. We gave her orders, and I wondered if it would be rude to get up and excuse myself to go talk to Daisy. After all, that was the first time Helena had been nice enough to actually invite me to some place. Before I could even bring it up, Daisy came to our table again to cross-check our orders. In the process of doing it, she spilled some water on me. She profusely apologized while dabbing away at my pants before leaving a note there. I looked at her in confusion, but she just bobbed her head subtly in the direction of the note. While she was still dabbing at my lap, I discreetly read the note, and it said, "Come to the washroom ASAP. It's urgent." That only made me more confused and concerned. I decided to go to the washroom as per her note. I excused myself and made my way to the washroom. I waited there for about 2 minutes before Daisy walked in. She looked through all the stalls to make sure that none of them were occupied and then came back to me and hugged me really tight. I was surprised, but hugged her back too. "Hey, Daisy, it's lovely to see you again. What's been going on?" "I would love to catch up with you, Billy, but there's something I need to tell you." "What's wrong? Is everything okay?" "With me, yes. With you, it's not going to be. I couldn't just drag you away from your table, so I left you a note." "What do you mean by it's not going to be okay with me?" "Well, the other day I was on shift when the lady sitting in front of you came over with her friend." "She's my mother-in-law, and that was probably her best friend that she walked in with." "Holy crap. That's your mother-in-law?" "Yeah, why?" "Okay, so I'm pretty sure it's you that she was talking about, but I was just trying to be extra careful about any other woman she brought along with her to this restaurant." "What in the world are you talking about?" "Right. I overheard her talking about poisoning her daughter-in-law's food with something she's allergic to. I'm sure if she has another daughter-in-law, but I'm warning you, just in case, run." Wait. Are you sure it was her?" "Yeah. Hold on. I secretly recorded the entire conversation while I cleaned their table. I put my phone in my shirt's pocket and went about cleaning as slowly as I could." Daisy whipped out her phone and scrolled for a little while through her photos before finally finding the video she wanted to show me. And just like she had described, there was Helena and her friend Betty sitting and talking. They were talking about how I was a disrespectful daughter-in-law and how I didn't know how to take care of either myself or her son. Helena was even bragging about how she had been tormenting me for so long just to put me in my place. She called me pathetic for doing whatever I could to gain her approval, which really stung because she was my mother-in-law and my husband's mother. Of course I wanted her to like me. Anyway, she carried on talking about how she planned to test me by adding some finely crushed peanuts into my food while I wasn't looking, just to see if I would recognize it. She also thought that it would be funny to make a scene about my allergy because she thought I was just saying some bogus. Watching that video shook me to my core. First of all, I knew she was referring to me because she had only one son and one daughter, so it wasn't hard to guess that I was the daughter-in-law she was referring to. Secondly, I have a deathly allergic reaction to peanuts, so much so that I can't even have any form of cross-contamination or I will go into anaphylactic shock. It was appalling to see Helena talk about it in such a casual manner, especially talking about triggering it, which could potentially kill me. I thanked Daisy for the heads up, and she assured me that she was just doing her best to protect another woman, but she was glad that she was able to help me. We exchanged phone numbers, and I told her that I might have to use her name to get out, and she told me I was clear to do it. I gave her a generous tip and made my way back to our table. When I got to the table, Helena looked impatient and upset. "Where have you been? My goodness, you look like you peed your pants." "I know. I met the waitress while she was on her way back to her station and she apologized, so at least she was sweet about it." "Ugh, these waitresses don't know a thing about customer service." No, no, it's okay, but I think I'll have to leave and go back home. My pants are way too wet and I feel really uncomfortable. Nonsense. Just sit down and we'll carry on. I'm really sorry that I have to bail, but the AC's up pretty high and I'm feeling really cold. I don't want to get sick and I would much rather go back home. Wow, you're really going to leave the one time I've extended a hand to get to know you better? I know, and I feel really bad, but this was something completely out of my control. I'm going to have to leave right now, but you go ahead and enjoy your time here. I left after saying that. I drove back home immediately, but before I reached it, I stopped by a gas station and texted Daisy to send me the video of Helena talking about her plan. She replied almost instantly, and when I had the video saved, I drove back home. Carl was obviously surprised to see me there because he had seen how excited I was, and I ended up coming home way too early. I didn't actually say anything to him, although I did rush straight to the bathroom to take a hot shower. I wanted to get whatever happened off of me. I was scared that Helena may have put the crushed peanuts on my clothes or in my hair, just any way to harm me if her plan failed. I scrubbed myself down thrice, and when I was done, I threw my clothes into the wash. After which, I once again scrubbed my hands clean. Carl just stood in the corner and watched me clean myself like a maniac, but didn't say a word. He just waited until I was done so I could explain to him what had happened. Do you want to talk about it now? Yeah, I'm sorry, I was just paranoid. What on earth were you paranoid about? You were out to lunch with my mom. Well, I happened to run into a childhood friend who works as a waitress there. Oh, that's nice. Is that why you're paranoid, though? Kind of. She spilled some water on me and asked me to meet her in the washroom because she had something important to tell me. That's odd. Turns out she wanted to warn me that your mother wanted to harm me. What? Are you sure that it was my mom? And even if it was, are you sure that it was you? Well, I'm the only daughter-in-law she has, so I'm pretty sure it was me. How did your friend know about this? Helena had gone there with her friend and they were discussing the plan. My friend happened to be their server and overheard the entire thing. And you're going to take the word of a friend you used to have just like that? No, of course not. But she did manage to record the conversation and I have it with me here. I played the video for him and Carl's eyes got wide. He was just as appalled as I was. At that point, he realized just how bad his mother had always been treating me. All those times that I told him about her absurd behavior and he brushed it off came crashing into his mind. Not to mention, he had been there once when I got hospitalized after I had consumed something that had peanut traces in it. That experience alone was traumatizing for him, and to find out that his mother had planned to put me in a similar situation was jarring. He apologized to me a lot for his past behavior, and of course, I let it go. I knew where he had been coming from, after all. Who could ever imagine their own mother trying to actively harm their spouse? We talked about his mother's plan for a long while and concluded that it would be best if we never met her in person ever again. We didn't want to risk her trying to hurt me again. Of course, that night, she called Carl to complain about me being indecent for running away. Carl, we need to talk about your wife. Yeah, we do. Oh, so you have something to say too? Absolutely. I knew it. But let me go first. That wife of yours is beyond disrespectful. You know what she did today? She left early? Yes, exactly. I had taken time out of my busy schedule to try and actually spend some one-on-one time with her, and that's what she did. The audacity of her. I'm telling you, it's high time that you leave her. If she can't respect your mother, is she really worth it? Why would she try to respect my mother when my mother tried to poison her? Excuse me? What? Can't act all high and mighty now? What are you talking about? I didn't try to poison her. Right. That's why I have a video of you discussing how you were going to mix crushed peanuts into her food with Aunt Betty. That was not real. We were only joking. Joking or not, that was a sick joke to make. I'm glad. Billy was informed about it and got herself out of the situation fast. Neither of us wants you to visit us ever again. We can chat and video call, but that's about it. If you show up to meet us anywhere, we will release the video and get a restraining order against you. Goodbye, Mom. Carl cut the call with that, and let me just tell you, it was really liberating to have him stand up for me. He was able to tell Helena all the things I wished to have told her from the start. Helena did try to call and text us again after that, but we felt like we deserved at least some space from her for a little while. We spent the next few months living blissfully. Carl still kept trying his best to make up for his ignorance, even though I assured him that I had already forgiven him for it. Helena, of course, did keep calling Carl, and every so often he would pick her calls up. Of course, she would say nothing but insults against me. She would tell him that he was being disrespectful towards his mother by listening to his wife's lies. Of course, he would never listen to what she said, and he would always make up some excuse to hang the phone up. Initially, we were skeptical about Helena listening to our fret, but for months, she did only communicate via calls and text. Just when we were beginning to let our worries subside, Helena decided to come over. You see, Carl had gotten tired of hearing Helena insult me, and in the process, he too, so he ignored her calls for around 2 weeks. She did not like that, and she decided that the best course of action would be to show up at our house. She rang our doorbell incessantly and kept yelling for us to open up. We tried to ignore her, but eventually the loud ringing of the doorbell started to give me a headache, so Carl opened the door to her. She shoved him aside and stomped into the house. I tried my best to stay as far away from her as possible because she really did look like she was really angry and ready to cause harm. I did not want to be caught up in that, but I was also curious to see why she had come over. Mom, what are you doing here? Didn't we? Don't you start with me, Carl. I'm your mother, and I have a right to know about what's going on in your life. Sure, but you've never actually asked me what's been going on in my life. All you've been giving me are your unsolicited opinions on my wife. They're not opinions, they're facts. Look, I'm sorry I ignored your calls, but you need to leave now. I'm not leaving until your witch of a wife comes here and apologizes for defaming me. Defaming? She didn't do anything like that. How can you stand up for her against your own mother? I didn't at first, but then I saw the proof and I couldn't side with you anymore. So get out, please. That proof is fabricated, like I'd ever tried to put crushed peanuts in her food. Like I said, I don't care that you were joking. It's still highly suspicious that you invited her out to lunch after years of her trying to get into your good books, right after you made that joke. She's just an insolent baby who constantly wants attention. I know in my gut that her allergy isn't real. I'm going to ask you to leave once again, or I will get the police involved. Helena refused to leave. She kept yelling that I was a family wrecker and that she'd make me pay for it in the worst possible way. I was crapping my pants with how scared I was. Thankfully, Carl called the police and they escorted her away. We also filed for a restraining order because we never wanted to be close to her again. Helena did not stop trying to tell the cops about me being evil either. It hurt to see her do that because I didn't even do a thing to make her feel that way. We did end up getting a lot of backlash from Carl's relatives for villainizing his mother, so he put them in a group chat and sent them the video of her planning to poison me and told them about my deathly allergy to peanuts. Everyone apologized after that and redirected their anger at Helena. Helena didn't take well to that either and blew up our phones for defaming her again. It's been a hectic few months dealing with all this, but we've decided to move on. We've blocked Helena everywhere, and we've decided that we want absolutely no contact with her going forward. I also got back in touch with Daisy and made sure to thank her profusely for what she did for me. We've since hung out a lot, and it's almost like we're back to what we used to be back in the day. Everything's looking good for now, and I feel like things are only going to get better from here on out. Hello, I'm Jenny, a 27-year-old woman who just got divorced. I met my husband Jake at college when I was in my freshman year and he was in his sophomore year. I knew from the time that I met him that he was going to be the one for me. After graduating, we focused on our careers and worked hard to save a lot of money so we could buy a good place to live in. By the time we got married, we had been dating for 7 years. Right after we got married, we purchased our own apartment and decided to start trying for a baby. But after months of trying, we did some tests and got told that I was infertile. I was devastated and inconsolable for a long time, but Jake had been my rock at that time. Jake's sister-in-law had also come over a lot to comfort me, and I did find some comfort in her too. Those were a tough few months for me to grapple with my new reality. But eventually, Jake and I began to see the pros of not having kids, like being able to spend twice the money on ourselves. About 2 years into Jake and I being married, we decided to be the ones to host for the holidays. My parents were on a cruise someplace, so it was Jake's family that joined us. Jake's parents were only stopping in town for a day because they were going on a road trip with some of their friends. They planned to stay the night at a motel so they could leave in the early hours of dawn without disturbing anyone. That only left Jake's brother Keith and his family, which included his wife Paula and his 4 kids. When Jake and I started dating, Keith and Paula had 2 kids from what Jake had told me. They were struggling back then as well. Keith wasn't working in a good enough job to support all of them, and Paula was adamant about being a stay-at-home mom. It was beyond me why they had 2 more children when they were struggling with the 2 they already had, but I digress. Anyway, that holiday, they asked us if they could stay with us for a week. Guys, we need to ask you about something.
Yeah, what is it? Is everything fine?
Yeah, we just wanted to ask if we could have a tiny staycation at your place with the kids. Staycation? Yeah, I mean, you're hosting the holidays and we were wondering if we could spend the entire week here until the 2nd.
We can't afford an actual vacation, and this would be some form of it for the kids.
I don't know about that. Our apartment isn't very kid-friendly. We have a lot of expensive or even just fragile things that the kids could break.
I'm sure you could manage for just a week, Jenny.
Yeah, please, for the kids' sake. Come on, Jenny. Please, just help out my family this once.
Fine. But I am warning you that if anything gets broken or damaged by your kids, I expect you to compensate me for it.
Yes, of course. I promise that we'll make sure the kids are well behaved. I wasn't too keen on allowing the kids in our home because I did have a lot of collections and other oddities hanging on walls or on shelves that were worth quite the buck. I had no other place to keep them away, because every room in our house would go towards giving Keith and his family a place to stay. I felt really pressured into giving up the space that I considered comfort, because Paula and Jake kept glaring at me while Keith looked at me like he was about to cry in desperation. I felt both intimidated and bad, so I gave in. Of course, my hesitation made Jake really upset with me. When Keith and Paula left our place that evening, Jake began lashing out at me for not helping the family. He asked me over and over again how I could be so heartless and value material things over family. He didn't even let me get a word in. He didn't speak to me for the next 2 days, and even though I was sure that I wasn't wrong to have concerns, I decided to put my own feelings aside and apologize, which Jake accepted and promised me that the holidays would be a wonderful time for us. When the holidays came around, it was a nightmare. The kids were a nightmare to deal with. Keith and Paula conveniently disregarded all their responsibilities and shoved them onto us, or me to be more specific, because Jake spent most of his time with Keith and Paula. Her kids were very undisciplined and very, very ruckus. They loved to destroy everything around them, and it was only a miracle that they didn't hurt themselves. I tried to get one of the other adults present to help with the kids, but they would always conveniently have some other plan to do at the moment. The only time I had true free time was on Christmas when Jake's parents looked after the kids for a couple of hours. By the time it was New Year's, I was exhausted and ready for them to go back home. It was probably the exhaustion that led to me having an outburst that was bigger than I meant for it to be. What happened was that all the adults were napping while I was tending to the kids as usual. I was changing the diapers of the littlest one when I turned away for a couple of minutes to use the washroom so I could wash my hands. In those few minutes, the other 3 kids went out into the living room and decided to climb onto the showcase that housed a good amount of my trinkets and also functioned as a stand for our TV. Well, to get better grips on the shelves, they decided to throw a bunch of the trinkets on it away, and one of them picked up one of the trinkets and began hitting the TV with it, which damaged the TV screen. When I heard the commotion and rushed into the living room, I was greeted by this huge mess. Of course, the commotion had been loud enough to wake everyone up. The sight of the mess and all of the damage made me lose it. That is it! Whoa, calm down, Jen. It's just a little mess. No, it's not a little mess. They've destroyed everything. I turn around for just a few minutes and everything is ruined. Don't be a drama queen, Jenny. They're just kids. You're right. They're just kids. They can't be blamed, but you can. You are a horrible parent. So is Keith. How dare you? Ever since you got here, I have not had a day of rest. I've been the one looking after them because none of you care to. They're not disciplined at all, and they love to break things. I told you that this would be an issue, and now you have to pay for it. Wow. With the way you're complaining about kids, I'm happy you're infertile. No woman like you should ever deserve to be a mother. Get out. Take your kids and get out. I was hurt and upset. How could Paula say that to me after she knew how sensitive that topic was? Not to mention, that was a really cruel thing to say. Once again, Jake got angry at me, but I didn't care. I was right and he knew it. He could have helped me out with the kids, but he chose not to either. We didn't speak for a couple of days and I chose to spend New Year's with my best friend, Bea, who was very sympathetic to my situation. Jake and I eventually sorted things out, that I did make it very clear to him that I expected to be compensated for the damage, because aside from the TV, a lot of the trinkets were antique ones. I also told Jake that I never wanted to see or hear from Paula ever again. He begrudgingly agreed, but only because he knew I was right. The total damage costs came to around $2,000, and I decided to have them only pay half of it, considering their struggles. And then a couple of months later, Jake told me that he had something to tell me. So, Keith called me today. Oh, that's nice. What did he say? Turns out he got this huge promotion. That's great for him. Guess they won't be struggling anymore, huh? I'm happy for them. Yeah, but he'll be moving to another state and it's way too expensive to move the whole family there. He asked if Paula and the kids could move in with us. No! I don't see why Paula can't handle the kids herself. Or, now that Keith will be earning more, they can hire a nanny to help her look after the kids. Come on, Jenny, don't be so mean. You know what happened the last time they stayed over for the holidays. I will not let that nuisance back into my home. It's not just your home, it's mine too. This is my family. I'm sorry you're too heartless to care about family, but I'm not that way. If you have such a giving heart, why don't you help them hire a nanny? Or better yet, why don't you go over and help her raise her children? Wow, you really don't care about how much Paula will struggle. Not after she made fun of me for infertility, I don't. You know what? You're too upset right now. We'll talk about this tomorrow. Good night. I couldn't believe Jake's audacity. He knew just how I felt about Paula and her kids coming over, especially after last time, but he still chose to ask me and insult me in the process too. Of course I cared about family, but that's a sentiment that should go both ways. I cared about his family, but they never seemed to care about me. I didn't see why I should have done more than they would have done for me. The next morning, we were back on the discussion, and I firmly told him no over and over again. I suggested alternatives to helping them too, like me sponsoring a nanny, or even us going over on the weekends and looking after the kids so Paula could have some time off. But he shot those down too. Every time I told him that Paula and the kids were not allowed in our home, he would get more and more frustrated. He used every tactic possible: emotional blackmailing, yelling at me, threatening to leave me, you name it, he tried it. I didn't budge. That was a hill I was willing to die on. This argument lasted a good week before suddenly Jake was acting all normal. That made me very suspicious, of course. He was very distant, but he no longer seemed agitated with me, nor did he try to ask me again to let Paula and her kids move in. After a week of constantly asking me and pestering me, this made alarm bells go off in my head. I decided to do a little snooping around. I waited until Jake had fallen asleep to take his phone and go through it. Yes, I know it's wrong, but when you have this intense gut feeling that something's wrong, you just want to check up on it. And that's what I did. I first went through his chats with his brother, and I saw one message from Keith that said, "Thanks for helping Paula and the kids." That immediately confirmed my suspicions that something was happening behind my back. I went through his chats with Paula and then found out that he had gone behind my back and told Paula that she and her kids could come and live with us. He also told her that he planned to give her my room because I was the one who didn't want to help her, so having to give up my room would teach me a lesson. I was furious. Jake and I each had our own rooms. They were rooms that we filled with things that both of us enjoyed individually. Mine also acted as my office on days that I worked from home. So giving up my room also meant giving up all forms of privacy. While a part of me wanted to wake him up right then and there and yell at him for going behind my back and villainizing me, the sane and rational part of me knew that it would lead to nowhere. I would be the one who would get hurt while Jake would continue to live well. I knew at that moment that I had the upper hand and I was going to play my cards right. According to Jake's texts with Paula, she was set to move in 2 weeks, so that gave me 2 weeks to move out beforehand. The first thing I did the next morning was to book a storage room where I could store all the furniture. Yes, all the furniture. You see, after Jake and I got married, we purchased a pretty big apartment. We had more than enough money after saving for years together, and it was our dream apartment. However, after we purchased it, we obviously needed to furnish it, but Jake decided that he didn't want to do that immediately. He wanted to do it after another 6 months. Keep in mind that all we had with us was a mattress, no bed frame, some utensils, and our personal things. Jake said he was tired of constantly not having any money to spend from saving so much for years. I understood his issue back then, so I let him have it his way. 8 months passed and my home was bare as it was on the first day we moved in, save for the few trinkets I bought here and there. Whenever I brought up buying the furniture, Jake would get all moody and upset with me. So I took matters into my own hands and bought everything myself. He didn't spend a dime on anything. From sofas to bed frames and bookshelves to even mirrors, he didn't pay a cent. I was going to remove everything. The only things he paid for existed in his room, so I let that be. The next thing I did was contact my best friend, Fia, and ask her if I could stay over for a rather long period. "Hey, how's it going?" "Not that great." "Oh no, what's wrong?" Jake decided to go behind my back and let his sister-in-law and her 4 kids live with us because his brother is moving to another state for work, even though I explicitly told him not to. "Wait, is this the same sister-in-law that mocked you for being infertile?" "The one and only." "And why can't she take care of her own kids?" "Because they're reckless. Last time they were over, they destroyed about $2,000 worth of things. You can see why I don't want any of them in my house." "Holy crap, yeah. So what are you doing about it?" Well, I snooped through Jake's phone and found out that he plans to give my sister-in-law my room as a punishment for not willing to help out. What the hell? So I was thinking that I would take everything out from the room and the house because I literally bought everything in it to begin with, and I'll keep it in a storage room. I love that thought process, but what about you? Yeah, that's what I was calling to ask about. Do you think I could stay with you until I get back on my feet? It might take a few months. Are you kidding me? Of course you can. We get to have sleepovers for a long time. Hell yeah, you can come over. Just let me know the time and date and I'll help you bring your stuff over. You're an angel. I felt more than ready to teach Jake a lesson. I knew this was technically the end of the marriage because I didn't want to be with someone who was so selfish that they failed to at least consider their partner's feelings. I spent the rest of the 2 weeks discreetly packing away my things and starting the filing procedures for divorce. At some point, except for the big and most commonly used furniture, the rest of it was slowly transported away during Jake's working hours. Thankfully, he was too caught up in his own thoughts to even notice the big differences in the house. A lot of my things were gone to Fia's place too, and he never noticed. My anxiety was high during those 2 weeks because I really wanted my plan to work out well, but also because I wanted to make as clean of an exit as possible. Once the 2 weeks were up, I knew that Jake would call me that day from work and ask me to clean out my room for Paula. So I took a day off work to get the final transporting of the furniture out. I took our couches and mantles and even all the bed frames. Jake would be left with the few things he had when we rented this apartment. Right as the movers had taken the things away and I sat in my car with the rest of my things to go to Fia's place, I got a call from Jake. Hello? Yes, it's me. What happened? Is everything okay? I need you to vacate your room. Paula and the kids are coming over. I thought we discussed that it wouldn't be happening. It's happening because I said so. Get on with the plan. And what about the kids? Where will they sleep? They'd have the guest bedroom to share. They're all young enough for that. And you have your room, but I won't have mine? No, because this is your lesson for refusing to help our family. You are a piece of work, truly. You know what? Don't worry. I knew about your plan, so I vacated my entire room, along with all of my belongings in the house. Why did you remove all your belongings? Because I said so. Get on with the plan. Goodbye. It felt amazing to say that to him, but even more than that, I was excited to hear his reaction to the whole thing. Before I left, I also made sure to leave him the divorce papers on the kitchen island because that was where he would first go after work to grab a cold drink. He was going to experience his shock in waves, and I was ready for that. I made my drive over to Fia's and we greeted each other in excitement. We quickly unloaded all my things and got to arranging the room she had given me in a basic manner. We tried to make it as homely as possible just so I was comfortable enough until I had enough time to fully unpack. Once we were done, we sat down to chat for a little while about how I was feeling and what I was going to do further on. However, all throughout that time, I couldn't help but constantly anxiously glance at my watch to check if Jake was done with work and on his way home. He did take longer than usual to get back home that day, but I figured that was probably because he was picking up Paula and the kids. But I knew he had reached home when I got a call from him. I initially ignored it just to stoke the fire a little, but I ended up giving in and picking up after the 5th call from him. What do you want, Jake? You took everything out of the house? Didn't I say that I vacated all of my things from the house? Yes, but that was our furniture and utensils. You can't just take them all away. Why can't I? I paid for them all, didn't I? Even after I repeatedly asked you to start buying things for the house, you never did. So I took away everything. What will Paula and the kids do? Not my problem. I told you to not let them come over, but you didn't listen. Instead, you went behind my back and disrespected me. You're cruel. No, Jake, you're the one that's cruel.
I gave you my boundary and you violated it. You know what your sister-in-law and her kids did that last time, and you still invited them over. I would have been okay with you going over to stay there, but you insisted on them staying with us. So have it your way then. Oh, get over it, Jenny. It wasn't even that bad. Yeah, and you can get over me taking away everything that belongs to me too. It's not that bad. Also, I don't know if you saw it, but I've left your divorce papers on the kitchen island. You either sign it peacefully or you contact me through your lawyer. Goodbye. I hung up on him then, and he kept spamming me with calls after. I just put my phone on Do Not Disturb and continued to relax with Via. All the anxiety in my body left after that phone call was done. I had nothing else to worry about. If Jake did decide to contest the divorce, I would still be safe because we signed prenups. And all the furniture I bought was bought using my individual money and not money from our joint accounts. Jake did end up contesting the divorce, but like I said, I was fine. I don't exactly know about what happened to Jake and Paula and her kids, but from the long rant text that Paula sent me, I'm guessing that they had to drive back to her place that night, and that really upset the kids because they were looking forward to staying at my place. She also told me that since I took away the bed frames, Jake went to live at their place until the new one came, and since they didn't have any spare rooms or beds, he had to sleep on the couch. She kept telling me that I should be ashamed of myself for putting people in need through harder times. A part of me did feel bad for finding that situation funny. Who were the people in need? It was definitely not her. I knew she was just trying to mooch off her responsibilities onto us. As for Jake, he played a stupid game and now he won his stupid prize. It's been about 8 months since all of this happened, and I can happily say that the quality of my life has improved a lot. Living with Fia has been amazing, and in fact, we were even discussing moving in together. That's about it for now. Thanks for listening.
Hello, my name's Pedro, and I'm a 32-year-old woman. Today I want to tell you about a life-changing event in my life. But before that, I need to introduce you to my younger sister, Sunny. I have 2 other sisters, and while the 3 of us get along really well, we don't share the same bond with her. Sunny was the golden child that my parents spoiled senselessly. There was never a request of hers that was denied. In the meantime, my sister and I had to fight for what we wanted. That did not create the healthiest dynamic in our family. Sunny was especially rude towards me because I had everything she wanted. Effortless good looks, good grades, and I was able to do any task really well regardless of my experience in it. She essentially made my life hell in every possible way, be it by actually bullying or ruining my relationship with my parents. So it came as no surprise for me to move out as soon as I turned 18. It was in college that I met my now ex-husband Jasper. He was in his 3rd year of university when I was a freshman. I don't exactly remember how we got to talking, but I do remember that when we did, we clicked really well. From then on, we began dating. After I graduated from college, we decided to move in together. Around this time, I opened up to Jasper and told him about my complicated relationship with my sister and the reason why I was not too keen on ever going back home or introducing him to my family. Jasper was supportive and understanding, and I was glad for that. We waited until we both had good, stable jobs before tying the knot. We invited both our families to celebrate with us. I invited mine out of pure obligation, but I hoped really hard that they would not cause any scenes, and thankfully everything went off well. Around a year into our being married, Jasper told me that he wanted to have kids. So I was thinking, yes, I kind of want to have kids with you. Kids as in plural? I mean, yeah. Think of how cute it would be to have a couple of mini versions of us running around her. All I'm thinking about is the financial strain that would put on us and the lack of sleep we'll have. Wait, Are you saying that you don't want to have kids? Jasper, I've never wanted to have kids. I grew up in a house full of kids that I practically brought up, one of whom hated me for no reason. I'm terrified of being a parent. But this will be different. This time you'll have me and you won't be a kid yourself. I promise that I'll be there with you the entire time. I don't, Jasper. It just seems like a lot. Why can't we just enjoy our time together alone? It would be way more fulfilling to see our love culminate into something that actually exists, don't you think? Fine, we can have one kid, but we need to be fully financially stable before that happens. Of course! You've made the right choice. You'll never regret it, I promise. With that, Jasper and I waited another 1.5 years before starting to try for a child. I got pregnant fairly fast. I still remember the look of absolute joy on Jasper's face when I told him that I was pregnant. It was a wonderful time. But then things started to get a little weird. Jasper was always very controlling about everything, right from what I ate to when I showered. I mean, yes, he took care of me really well, but at the same time, he was unlike the man that I had fallen in love with. He didn't smile or laugh much anymore. Everything felt dull. No matter how many times I tried to talk to Jasper, he just never spoke to me about it. About 3 months into my pregnancy, I became aware of how tight our budget had suddenly gotten. Jasper used to spend money lavishly without any hesitation, and then suddenly he declared a budget, and we had to stick to it. He would get cranky if I asked him to get me certain foods that I was craving because they were going out of budget. Initially, I just thought it was about him being worried that raising a child would be way more expensive than we thought. But then I realized that technically, we had planned way ahead for this. We had done the proper analysis of our financial situations and only started a family when we were both more than financially stable enough. There was literally no need for Jasper to be so uptight about our spending. I remember laying in bed for nights just thinking about Jasper's odd behavior. One particular night while Jasper was away on some weekend business trip, I was stuck with a sudden thought. What if Jasper was spending money somewhere else without telling me? At first, I felt bad for thinking that way about him, but then the more I thought about it, the more his behavior began to make sense. So even though I hated snooping through his things, I logged into his bank account through my phone. As I looked through the transactions, I realized that my hunch was right. He was spending hundreds of dollars somewhere else, and all those times were when he would mysteriously disappear for work purposes. I knew they were not work-related because all these transactions were being made in places in our town. There was one particular transaction that made my heart drop. In fact, this transaction was a repeated one about 3 times a week. It was at this motel not too far from our house. I couldn't think of one good reason for Jasper to visit a motel 3 times a week. I hated the feeling of dread that took over me and the anxiety that filled me. But I knew that I had to get to the bottom of his weird behavior and excessive spending. When Jasper got home from his business trip, I continued behaving as if nothing was wrong. The next time he disappeared, I followed him. I went to the motel and asked the receptionist if a man named Jasper had booked a room. The man was uninterested enough to hand me the logbook. I flipped through the page and found Jasper's name. He had already checked in. I asked the receptionist if I could have a copy of the key card, considering Jasper was my husband. The man gave me a once-over and handed me the key card. My heart raced as I walked through the corridors to Jasper's room. I don't know what I was expecting to see, but what I saw was definitely not that. There, in bed, was my husband and my sister. They did not seem to realize that I was there, and I was so shocked that I physically could not move. Eventually, the shock wore off and I cleared my throat to let them know that I was there. When they saw me standing there, they rushed to cover themselves up. "Pero, what are you doing here?" "I don't think you should be the one asking questions right now. What are you doing?" "What does it look like, Pero?" "Sonny." "Oh, get over it. You knew that she would find out one day anyway. Who cares that she found out now?" Are you serious right now? How long has this been going on?" "A couple of months." "By a couple of months, do you mean around the time I got pregnant with your child?" "Yeah, honestly, that was a bit of a shocker, but I managed to get Jasper to stop freaking out." "What do you mean by freaking out?" "Jasper, you were the one that wanted this kid." "I know, and I'm sorry." "Sorry will not cut it. And as for you, Sonny, you're dead to me. I never want to see your face ever again." "Listen, there's no need to be so butthurt about this. I get that you're pregnant and your hormones are going crazy, but that's no reason to behave like you have a stick up your butt." "That's enough, Sonny. Honey, I'm so sorry that I did this. Can we still work things out?" "Just leave me alone for a while." I left them there in that room and made my way back to my car. I felt horrible, but I knew that I couldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me cry. When I finally got into my car, I let myself sob. I didn't understand why Jasper would do something like that, especially because he knew about my complicated relationship with Sonny. Sonny's words were supposed to be ineffective, but somehow they hurt even more. The fact that she showed no remorse and thought that I was overreacting because I was pregnant made me feel so angry. A part of me wanted to go back in and lash out at them, but I knew better than to do that. Instead, I made my way over to my best friend Tia's house. When I got there, I collapsed into sobs in Tia's arms. She was obviously alarmed because she had assumed that something went wrong with my pregnancy. But through my sobs, I managed to tell her that it was not related to that, but it was something that was possibly worse for me. She then let me cry for a long while before finally asking me what happened after I calmed down. "What's wrong? What happened?" So I found a bunch of transactions on Jasper's card that did seem familiar, and they kind of had a routine, as in it was a transaction at the same place 3 days a week. "Oh, was it for food?" "I wish. I got curious and found out that he was making payments at the motel near our place." "Oh no. Please tell me he was just trying to decompress or something." "Oh yeah, he was definitely decompressing with my sister." "What? Which one?" "Please don't tell me it's..." "Yeah, it's Sonny. That cheating scumbag. Who the hell does he think he is to do something this bad to you, especially when you're pregnant with his child?" That was not even the worst of it. Sonny was so rude. She told me I was behaving all crazy because I was pregnant. Can you believe it? I swear to God, I will punch her one day. But oh my God, how are you doing right now? I really don't know. I feel so crappy and so betrayed. I had told Jasper all about my issues with Sonny, and he still went and cheated on me with her. Did he at least apologize or seem apologetic? Yeah, he did apologize. But at the time,
I needed space to process what I had walked into. I don't know what to do. I think you should leave him. But I'm way too scared to raise a child all on my own. I need to have someone there with, or I'll go insane. That's fair, but I know for a fact that you will not end up being able to forget him cheating, and that will only make you hate him even more as time goes by. I know, but I just need someone there for the first year. Once I have the hang of it, I will definitely leave him. Well, all right. I'll be standing right behind you no matter what decision you take. Just remember that no matter what happens, I will be here for you and you will not be alone. Thanks, Tia. I really needed that. Tia gave me the space and time to process all my feelings. I was able to figure out what my true decision was, and I decided to stick with the plan I had given Tia. I would stay with Jasper for a year and then leave him. It hurt me to think that I was going to leave the love of my life. But what hurt even more is that the love of my life betrayed me in such a horrible manner. I went back home after 2 days with Tia. When I got there, Jasper was sitting on the couch. I did not acknowledge him, but he did follow me around for a while and kept trying to ensure that I was feeling okay. For a split second, it felt like I had my husband back, but whenever I looked at his face, all I saw were images of him and my sister in the cheap motel bed, and that was an image that was never going to leave my mind. Eventually, we settled into a rhythm. We barely spoke, but there was a silent understanding that we were going to slowly work things out between us, or so I thought. The next 2 months flew by pretty quickly. Jasper had been extra caring about me as I drew closer to my due date. He seemed excited to meet his child, and while I also shared that feeling, I also knew that pretty soon I would have to leave him. What I did not expect was to one day wake up to an empty bed and an empty house. Or at least empty of all Jasper's things. I was shocked and confused. I tried to call him, but he did not pick up. I was then panicking because out of the blue, I was left all alone. I hoped Jasper would return, but by the end of the day, it became clear that he had left me. I called Tia over and she stayed with me while I once again processed all the intense emotions that I was feeling. It did not help that the baby was constantly kicking and ruining my sleep schedule. I was a mess through and through. One day, about a week and a half after Jasper left, Tia exclaimed from the couch and ran over to me, almost falling flat on her face in her shock to tell me what she had found out. "Oh my God, Pedal, you are not going to believe this." Whoa, what's going on? I was just scrolling through Facebook and I happened to come across this post by Sunny. Why are you trying to show me a post about Sunny? You know how she's a sensitive topic right now. I know, but this is kind of serious and I'm actually worried about how you'd react to it, but I figured that it would be better for you to find out about it while I'm here rather than when you're alone. You're scaring me. What is it? Tia then turned her phone towards me and there was a picture of Sunny and Jasper kissing. Sunny was dressed in an elegant wedding gown while Jasper was wearing a tux. Sunny captioned the post, "Can't wait to spend forever with my forever." I felt the bile rise up in my throat. How could they? What happened to all of Jasper's care and comfort? Had he been planning to run away and get married to Sunny the entire time that he was taking care of me? Was it just a sick game for him to raise my expectations and then shatter them in the same way over and over again? I don't know how, but I managed to get myself together during the next 2 weeks. Tia was my biggest source of comfort. She helped me with everything, whether it was a physical need or an emotional one. Before I knew it, it was time for me to give birth. I gave birth to a beautiful and healthy baby girl.
The moment I held her in my arms, I forgot all about the other pains I had. Nothing made me happier than her. We took our time settling into a new routine with the baby. Tia moved into my place because it was a house and the house was better than an apartment. Together, we battled endless sleepless nights and busy work-filled mornings. Tia was once again a strong shoulder to cry on. Of course, I was still very upset with Jasper and Sonny, but I knew that there was nothing I could do. Tia helped me file for divorce from Jasper, and doing that itself reopened all my wounds. But once again, through sheer willpower and support from Tia, I managed to overcome everything. The years, 7 years to be exact, passed by in the blink of an eye. I got to watch all of my baby girl's firsts, her first rollover, her first laugh, her first steps, her first words, and her first day at school. And with every first I witnessed, I felt myself heal a little more. My daughter was growing into a smart and kind kid who had this infectious smile, and I loved it. I had almost entirely forgotten about Jasper until one day I got a call from an unknown number. Hello? Hey, Pedal, it's Melody, Jasper's mother. Oh, hi, Melody. Is everything okay? Not really. I needed to talk to you about something, and I just managed to find your number. What is it? For the past 7 years, I haven't seen Jasper in person. He told me he had a child and constantly sent me pictures, but for some reason, he never sent me any pictures of you. And I only found out about it a couple of weeks ago. So, he didn't tell you that he cheated on me with my sister when I was 5 months pregnant? That was your sister? Yeah, she's a piece of work too. Look, I just want you to know that I'm on your side all the way. I called to ask if you'd be down to get some revenge. Thanks a lot, but revenge? Why do you want to get revenge on him? I don't necessarily want to get any revenge on him, but I want to help you out. I'm sure these past few years have not been the greatest for you, and I just know that giving Jasper at least an ounce of his own medicine will make you feel better. It has been a really long time, but I'll never not be down to teach Jasper a lesson. Count me in. Great. I've booked my tickets and I'll be arriving there tomorrow morning. Get ready to have a lot of fun. I didn't know how she had so much confidence in me saying yes to her plan because she already had her ticket booked, which honestly made me feel kind of nice. At the same time, learning that he had a child with my sister made me feel icky. It was a wonder that he lasted with her when he left me right around when I was pregnant. True to her word, Melody was there in the morning and we immediately began brainstorming how to go about getting our revenge. Melody told me that she came to town earlier because of me. Turned out that Jasper had invited her to celebrate his birthday since she knew the truth. Apparently this was going to be a big celebration considering he also got a huge promotion, so he had invited people from work and his regular friends to attend. That explained her pre-booked tickets. So we planned out our revenge of humiliation for that day. On the day of his huge birthday party, Melody walked into Jasper's house, which was honestly fancy, and it made me even angrier. I walked behind Melody so Jasper didn't see me at first. He warmly greeted his mother before finally seeing me and turning pale. That reaction itself was satisfying for me. Melody saw his reaction too and innocently told him that she had run into me at the grocery store today and invited me over. Jasper tried to say something, but Melody quickly shut it down by claiming that I was family, so I deserved to be there. At some point, Sonny noticed me too, and her face turned into this scowl. I watched her pull Jasper to her side and ask him what I was doing there, and he just shrugged in response while looking at his mother
Eventually, Melody got everyone's attention and told them that she had something to say as Jasper's mother. Jasper looked nervous, but let her go on because everyone looked at her intently. She began to speak about how she struggled to raise Jasper as a single mom, and that she's glad to see where her son has reached in his career. I watched Jasper's shoulders relax because he thought that Melody was saying only nice things, until she wasn't. She began to talk about how he had let her down by cheating on me with my sister while I was heavily pregnant with his child. Of course, this got everyone whispering between themselves. Jasper's face paled while Sonny looked furious. To my surprise, someone else spoke up. That person was Jasper's boss. He asked Jasper if it was true, and I stepped in and said that it was. His boss told everyone about how much family and ethics mattered to him and the image of the company. He said he couldn't risk this coming out and ruining the company, so Jasper was going to be let go of. I was shocked. That was not what I was expecting to happen, yet it was satisfying to see Jasper's world come crashing down. Melody clinked her glass against Jasper's bosses and winked at him. She was just as happy with that decision. At that point, the atmosphere in the room got awkward and people started filing out. Once everyone left, Jasper and Sonny approached me. "You just had to show up, didn't you? Our lives were so much better when you weren't in it." "You will not speak to her that way. You guys deserve what you get and so much more. This is not how I raised you, Jasper. I am your son. How could you do this to me?" "It's because you're my son that I even went this far. Although I no longer consider you my son, you've been disowned. When I die, Petal and her child will get everything I own." "That's not fair. You took away his job and now his inheritance too? How heartless are you?" "You have no right to say anything. Stay out of it. Our work here is done. Goodbye, you two." And with that, we made our exit. It felt amazing to get revenge on them. I was so grateful that Melody was on my side because I would never have gotten to feel so good. Yeah, I did manage to get over the hurt of Jasper and Sonny's actions, but to see them destroyed brought me actual joy. From what I know, Sonny took their child and left Jasper behind. Serves him right, if you ask me. I stopped checking in on them after that because I felt like that was enough revenge for me. In the meanwhile, Tia and I found a bigger and better apartment to move into with my daughter. Melody and I have much more regular contact and we fly out to meet each other pretty often. Life is finally looking a lot more colorful than before, and I can't wait to see what comes next. Hello guys, my name's Harley and I want to tell you about my horrible stepmother, Lena. I will be calling her Lena in my story because she never was my mother or even interested in being one. I mean, this is what she told me when my dad, Cameron, first introduced me to her. She didn't do it in front of him, though. She said, "I don't want you getting any ideas about me being your mother, Harley. You are just my husband's daughter and nothing else. You are a teenager, so don't expect me to ever slave myself for you." That's okay, Lena. I'm perfectly capable of doing things on my own. I just want my dad to be happy. I won't come in the way." "You are already in the way, you little witch. Don't try to be smart with me. I know how to manage worthless teens like you. As soon as you turn 18, I will do my best to make sure you are out of our lives for good. Then I will have Cameron all to myself." The talk escalated very quickly to Lena saying some exceptionally nasty things about me and my dead mother.
Yes, my father was a widower and my mom died when I was only 8. I miss her terribly. And it took Dad a long time to date, let alone find love again. That was one reason why I never told my dad about Lena's horrible words or behavior. Big mistake, guys. I should have spoken up because this woman turned into a nightmare after she married Dad. Even Dad was taken aback by her behavior. Lena always targeted me and did her best to turn me out of the house. She made it clear that she hated children and didn't want me around. That was something she never told my dad before they dated. When Dad refused to abandon me, she started to find ways to harass me. She used to mess up her food and put the blame on me. She said, "Will you look at your daughter, Cameron? Look at what she's done. She has purposefully spoiled my cooking because I refuse to cook for her. She is going to poison me one day, Cameron." Harley, do you have an explanation for this? I swear I don't know anything about this, Dad. I'm perfectly happy to cook for myself. I wasn't even in the house before you came home, and I bought takeout to eat in my room. Oh God, she's lying now, Cameron. I'm telling you that you need to get rid of her before she kills me. This is just one small example of what Lena has been up to for 4 years she was in my life. The entire fiasco was over too much salt on her food, which she had added herself to blame me. It was bizarre, but Dad believed me. I had enough proof. Throughout the year, she did a lot more. She got me off the phone connection, locked me out of the house for 5 hours, took my car keys on the day of an important test, threw away my project that I spent a week making, and much more. Dad did his best to make her understand that this wasn't okay, but she never listened. She would act friendly for a few days before doing something horrible again. By the time Lena was with us for a year, I got a job and started to pay for a lot of my own things. I simply didn't want her interfering in my life anymore. Dad was upset, but I told him that it would be nice for me to have money of my own. I didn't want him to feel guilty. Lena was a stay-at-home wife and considered her dad's money as her own. So she didn't want Dad spending too much on me. Not even some of the basics. I tried to be as invisible as possible so that Lena would leave me the hell alone. She never took the hint and continued to harass me. She wanted to keep her word of removing me from her life and the house. But she had no idea what fate had in store for us. The real fiasco happened a few weeks after my 18th birthday. Since I turned 18, Lena has been in a good mood. She was chirping and sometimes singing gleefully in the house. I knew why she was so happy. She was thinking that she would finally be able to get rid of me. Well, not so fast, Lena. She had no idea that I had heard her talking to her friend on the phone. She told me how she would ambush me and kick me out. I knew her plan already, but she had no idea what was in store for her. So the day I came home from work and saw my stuff packed, I was not upset, but just amused. I said, "Hey, Lena, want to tell me why my stuff is packed and waiting in my bedroom? Are we going on vacation?" Don't act so smart, Harley. I hope you remember my words. I told you that once you turn 18, I will be kicking you out. Well, it is time for you to leave. Now, I have decided to be a good person and pack your stuff for you. You know, make things easier for you. So, you want to kick me out of my house? Oh, no, Harley. This is my house. And I don't want or have to keep you here anymore. I will deal with Cameron later, but you are leaving for sure. Lena had this overconfident smirk on her face which told me that she was pleased with herself. She had already started to make plans in her head of what she would do with my room, but like I said, not so fast, Lena. Karma is just about to come for you. I calmly took out some documents from my bag and handed them to her. When she looked at me confused, I just smirked and said, I think you need to take a look at these papers first, Lena. I have been meaning to give you this for a while. Thank God you talked about the eviction today. It just made me remember these documents. What are these papers? Why do I need to read them? Why don't you take a look and find out? Lena sat down and started to read the papers that I had just handed her. She started out looking confused, but slowly her confusion turned into shock and then disbelief. She looked at me and then at the papers in her hand again. Then she turned angry. She said, Is it an eviction notice in my name? What the hell, Harley? What is the meaning of this? It means that I want you out of my house in a month. You know the usual thing that an eviction paper means. You can't serve me eviction papers. You can't do that. This is my house and I am the only one who can kick people out. No, Lena, this is my house and has always been so. My dad was just a caretaker who held this place for me until I turned 18. Now that I have, it belongs to me. I have just recently completed the documentation process. No, that's impossible. Cameron can't just give you this house. This is our marital asset, and he can't give you the house without consulting me. How is this a marital asset, Lena? Dad had this house before you were in the picture. I guess he didn't tell you that this house actually belonged to my maternal grandparents. They left the house to me and appointed Dad to hold the house until I turned 18, which I did just a few weeks ago. No. You have to be lying to me. This can't be true. You were trying to scam me and kick me out of the house. Wait till your father hears about it. He will kick you out instead. Lena then made the ridiculous mistake of calling my father downstairs. She forgot the fact that she never asked my dad if she could kick me out. I mean, even if the house belonged to my father, she should have asked him, right? She knew what his answer would be, so she went behind his back to kick me out. In her frenzy, she forgot this little detail and decided to involve Dad. I'm not complaining, though. It's even better for me this way. Dad came downstairs to check what the yelling was about. He said, Whoa, calm down, Lena. Why are you yelling like a banshee? What is wrong? Why won't I be screaming? Your worthless daughter is making some wild claims again. She's saying that this house belongs to her and she is kicking me out. Harley, what is going on? I need to know the truth. I knew that my dad would ask my side. He's a good father who knows that his wife can be a mean witch. So he always takes action after considering both sides. This is something that Lena always hated. She wanted Dad to take her side no matter who was in the wrong. I can't tell you how many fights they had on this. Still, Dad wanted to be fair towards us all. That's exactly why he asked for my side as well. I said, Lena calmed me down and told me that she was kicking me out. She said something along the lines of, I won't allow you to stay in my house anymore. I knew that she was going to do this. I heard her speaking to someone on the phone, so I decided to kick her out of the house instead. I served her an eviction notice. What the hell, Lena? Who gave you permission to try and kick my daughter out? You never discussed this with me. What is going on? Why am I hearing about this now? Lena knew that she had messed up at the moment. Like I said, she was so overwhelmed with the eviction notice that she forgot about being caught. I saw her panic for a while before turning hostile and defensive like she usually does. She said, Your daughter is already an adult, Cameron.
She had turned, and we let her stay in the house rent-free for a month already. Most parents kick their kids out once they turn 18. We need to make Harley learn to live on her own and become responsible.
That's for me to decide, Lena. You are not, and never was, her parent. You didn't even contribute to anything related to Harley. How did you think it was okay for you to decide when to kick out my daughter?
You were being unfair, Cameron. All these years I put up with your favoritism because Harley was a teenager. But now she needs to go. I won't let her stay in my house anymore.
Who said this is your house? Which deed shows that this house is in your name?
Well, it's your place, so I have equal rights to it since I am your wife. So this is my house too. I won't allow Harley here anymore. She needs to go.
This is not my house, and even if it was, you have no right to it. This is Harley's house and has her name on it.
Lena heard that and went pale. She didn't expect my dad to mirror my words and say that the house belonged to me. She was in her own fairyland where everything belonged to her just because she said so. Hearing anything else was nothing short of shocking and surprising for her. She began to cry and said, "Why would you say such a thing, Cameron?"
"Because the house belongs to Harley. I'm just speaking the truth. What's wrong with that?"
"You gave Harley your house without consulting me. How could you do this, Cameron? I'm your wife. You should have discussed this with me. I am not okay with this."
"You had no problem going behind my back and trying to kick my daughter out. Why can't I do the same, Lena? Talk about double standards. And there was nothing to discuss. This house was always supposed to be Harley's. I was the only trustee who took care of the house until she turned 18. The house got transferred to her name just recently." Lena now understood that we were telling the truth. Dad even offered to show her the papers in case she needed proof. She was in way too much shock to do or say anything coherent. She said, "You deceived me, Cameron. I thought that the house was yours. You lied to me. This is not fair." "I never lied to you, Lena. You never asked whose house this was. When we got married, we signed a prenup saying that our personal assets were just that, personal." "Oh my God, this can't be true. You should have told me, Cameron. Now Harley is throwing us out. Look at how ungrateful your daughter is, Cameron." "I am not throwing my dad out, Lena. That reward is solely yours. You're the one who won't get to live in my house anymore. I would have considered letting you stay here. I told Dad as much. But after you tried to kick me out, I changed my mind. You are going to leave." "If you kick me out, your dad will follow as well. We are a couple. He won't abandon his wife." Now, it was my father's turn to laugh out loud. He already made plans of his own that I knew about. But he was unsure whether to go ahead with it or not. I guess today's events made the decision easier for him. He was about to blow up his marriage, and Lena didn't see it coming at all. He said, "Actually, no, I am not following you, Lena. I will stay here and take care of my daughter. I have been on the fence about divorce for a while now. What you tried to do today sealed the deal for me. I will be filing tomorrow. Be ready for it." "Wait, what? Are you going to divorce me? You want to leave me over your shit daughter? You can't do that." "Yes, I can, Lena. You think I was going to forgive you for tormenting my daughter for 3 years? Oh, hell no. All this while I thought that you might change. I have been nothing but patient with you. But now I know that you will continue to be a toxic witch. I don't want someone like this in my or my daughter's life." Lena took a step back as if she had been physically hurt. She never expected her divorce to come so soon. My dad is actually a pretty quiet man who doesn't do anything drastic. This was actually unlike him. He was mad and his facial features showed that. He didn't shout, but his tone gave away the fact that he was very angry. It made Lena even more anxious. She started to argue with my dad, and I chose to leave that space to retreat to my room. Dad and Lena fought for an hour straight. It was mostly Lena shouting and crying while my father explained his reasons to her calmly. After the verbal fight ended, Dad came to my room. He seemed a little upset and refused to meet my eye. He sat down and said, "Harley, I know I need to apologize to you. I'm sorry, dear. I should have done a better job of protecting you against Lena. I thought that by being fair and avoiding fights, I would be able to make things work. I was stupid, and I made things worse for you." "You don't have to apologize, Dad. I know you loved Lena, and she wasn't like this when she married you. People change, and sometimes it takes time to come to terms with these changes." "Wow, you have matured a lot, you know. I wish I could have done things differently. I intentionally brought a mad woman into our lives." "Well, what is done. I forgive you, Dad. You really did try your best. I'm not complaining. Do you want to divorce Lena? I won't be mad if you don't. I would understand." "Girl, I'm not living with that mad woman anymore. I'm done. Her true face shocked me way too much to act faster. I really don't want her in my life anymore. Although I must say that I saw this coming. Somewhere in my subconscious, I knew something was up with Lena. That's why I made the prenup in the first place. I was worried that she would jinx your future and make trouble with money. So I thought this would be the best way." "See, you did think about me too. You deserve to be happy, Dad. That's all I want to say. If Lena doesn't mean anything to you anymore, it's best you separate." I spent a hell of a lot of time assuring my dad that he is not the horrible parent of the year. In fact, he went even close. He did a lot for me, and I knew that. I just needed to make him believe that too. I won't lie, guys, I was super happy that my dad was finally getting rid of that crazy woman, Lena. She is not the one for Dad, and has no business staying married to him. Not after everything she did all these years. The talk with my dad went well, and he went to the guest room to sleep. That night, I was finally feeling peaceful, knowing that Lena would soon be out of our lives for good. I was able to teach her a nice lesson that I hoped she would remember for the rest of her life. The real surprise came the next morning when I found Lena trying a little too hard to appear loving and caring towards me. She was in the kitchen, making me breakfast and acting like I was the best person in her life. Even Dad was giving her the side eye and looking at me with confusion on his face. When breakfast was over, I said, "Thanks for breakfast, Lena, but you don't have to do this anymore. I'm capable of making my own, as I have done for the last 6 years. Things don't need to change out of the blue." "What nonsense, Harley. I'm happy to do this for you. You having our meals together can bring us closer as a family." "What is the need for that? We won't be a family anymore. It's just a matter of time now. You should have done this years ago. It's too late now." "Oh, come on, Cameron. Don't be so hard on me. I'm trying. I can make this work. I will start being a better parent to Harley. We will be the best mother-daughter duo ever. Right, Harley?" I knew what Lena was trying to do. She had been backed into a corner and took the night to come up with a plan. I knew better than to trust her in my life. Looking at Dad, he had no intention of trusting her again either. He only looked at her a little amused. Since Lena was expectantly looking at me for a reply, I said, "I don't think so, Lena. First of all, I'm 18 and I don't need a new parent. I pay my own bills and will be off to college anyway. Secondly, you are and never will be my mother.
That word doesn't suit you at all. So no, Harley, I am not interested in whatever scheme you have come up with. Harley, look, I'm sorry for being so mean to you in the past. You need to give people chances, dear. We can be a happy family if you agree to give me a chance, and it will help me strengthen my marriage too. Dad says that you have a marriage within a few months. I don't know what you're trying to strengthen. If it's a ploy to try and stay in this house, I'm sorry to say it won't work. I'm kicking you out anyway. And I am going to divorce you anyway. You have already done the damage, Lena. There is no point in trying to act all innocent and remorseful. I know you better than that. Lena saw that her new strategy was not working. I guess she didn't have anything else in her ammo. She couldn't threaten to ruin Dad financially because of a prenup she signed, so she had no other way than to beg and cry. And she did deliver. She started to cry hysterically and begged me not to kick her out. She also begged me to ask my dad to give her another chance. She then begged my dad to be a little more forgiving. Our entire day was filled with Lena trying to beg and plead with us for mercy. Since me and my dad were both off from work that day, we had to put up with this torture. My dad did leave for a while to contact a lawyer and file for divorce. Lena received the papers within a week. Dad's lawyer had them served. Lena upped her begging and crying after she was served the papers. Me and Dad graciously informed her that she needed to get a job if she wanted a place to live and a lawyer for her divorce. She was convinced that she would convince us to give her a chance. Well, that didn't happen. As the month was up, she was promptly kicked out. She made some trouble when we told her to leave, but after Dad threatened her with more legal trouble, she left sobbing. I heard that she moved in with a friend since her own family can't stand her anymore. As she left, she took the negativity with her, and the house finally felt like home. It's been more than 2 years since the incident. I am now in college, which happens to be close to home. Dad has successfully divorced Lena and is back to dating. He says that he isn't looking to settle again, but just wants some company at times. As for Lena, last I heard, she moved into a flat with several flatmates and is struggling to make ends meet. Since she doesn't have a lot of qualifications, she is working a minimum wage job and just getting by. I saw her at a grocery store from afar. She looked like she had aged 10 years more. Karma had caught up with her and hopefully taught her a lesson never to try this shit again.